On May 12, 2003, firefighters were summoned at a white-clapboard home in St. Blaise, Quebec. 29-year-old Melanie Alix and her 3-year-old daughter escaped the blaze, but Melanie's 1-year-old son Matisse was pronounced dead after being pulled from the house by the owner of the house. Firefighters discovered 2 burnt chairs had been set alight in the living room but were already cold by the time they responded to a larger fire started on the stovetop. Fire scene analysts said there were 6 separate sites of origin for the blaze. Melanie had lost her wheelchair-bound mother Francine Levesque 2 years earlier, in a similar incident. There were inexplicable similarities between the 2 cases that went far beyond coincidence. Officials reopened the investigation into the death of Melanie's mother, Francine Levesque, who died in a fire in January 2001. Investigators determined both fires were deliberately set. They pointed out the flames had originated in multiple unconnected sites at different times. For instance, one fire flared and died at Levesque's home on January 31, 2001, allowing the air to cool enough for soot to settle on her prostrate body before a major inferno attracted calls to 911. Both Levesque and Matisse were found to have been drugged with the sleep-inducing antidepressant oxazepam, for which Melanie had a prescription. The case hinged on evidence showing that both Levesque and Matisse perished of smoke inhalation long before firefighters and paramedics arrived. Melanie was the last person to see the severely handicapped Levesque alive before fire destroyed her home. Melanie had lit a fire in her mother's wood stove before leaving the house. Investigators originally determined that the fatal fire was started accidentally. Melanie was arrested on May 16, 2003. Reports say she was a partial inheritor of her mother's estate and beneficiary of her son's life insurance policy. She described fighting thick smoke to reach Matisse's crib, but leaving the room without him because she'd written him off as already dead. She made her appearance in court on answering to charges of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and arson. The first-degree murder charge was in relation to the death of her 1-year-old son Matisse, and the attempted murder charge is related to her 3-year-old daughter. Melanie didn't look at members of the public in attendance at the courtroom. Her former partner Stéphane Leblanc and members of her family were present. During her long days on the witness stand, she had an explanation for everything, but contradicted herself many times when confronted with her videotaped confession to police during an interrogation the day after Matisse's funeral. Melanie admitted to investigators in 2003 that she had drugged her children before setting a fire on the stovetop fed by oil from the fryer. But in court she said the detective put words in her mouth and that she gave her children oxazepam only to calm them because they were concerned for her safety after their father threatened her with death. Melanie blamed her brother for the death of their wheelchair-bound mother. She blamed Leblanc for their son's death. Throughout her testimony she portrayed herself as a perpetual victim, of childhood sexual abuse at the hands of her grandfather, of adolescent sexual abuse by her brother, of rape and continual physical abuse by her ex, of car accidents and of police torture. She wrote a will the night before her son died. On the witness stand, she said it was to make sure her children got her money if her ex killed her. But the prosecutor pointed out the only mention of her children was that she wanted to be buried with them in the family plot. On their 6th day of deliberations, the 7 women and 5 men, who listened for almost 2 weeks as she recounted her troubled life in painstaking detail, instead decided that Melanie is a cold-blooded killer who targeted vulnerable members of her own family. The jurors saw through her blame game. It was a toss-up in the Longueuil courthouse as to who was happier about Melanie Alix being locked up for life, her brother or her ex-boyfriend. François Alix, who is 18 months older than his 31-year-old sister, said as far back as he can remember, she has been manipulative and mean. She's very dangerous. There's no limit to what she'll do. Stéphane Leblanc was beaming after the woman who murdered the couple's 1-year-old son, Matisse Alix Leblanc, was led out of the prisoner's box. I saw her face when she was sentenced and she looked disappointed, and that made me happy, he said.